Hello everyone and welcome back to the third part in this three-part series where we fully support a humanoid character in parts. Now this particular body I can't show you a lot of the supporting because pretty much anything I do from underneath is going to get taken off of YouTube. So I'm going to unfortunately do this one off camera and then we'll come back and finish up some of it that I don't need to turn upside down so you can see what the final supporting on the body structure looks like. And I do apologize for that, but there's just some content we can't show you guys on YouTube, unfortunately. And some of these models are a little risky. Risky. As you can see, we did our usual supporting style here. Lights mostly, mediums on some of the anchoring areas. And as you can see, she's not wearing much with that apron. So I really can't do any camera angles from underneath, so a lot of that had to be done off camera. I think that right there is about as much as I can get away with showing you guys. And I'm even concerned that this might be too much. So as you can see, once she's adequately supported, we really just need to go around and make sure that we address some of the zones that I missed. Which, again, focusing on the yellow checkered areas is going to be your most important thing. Making sure that any downward facing areas that have any parallel contact or shelving kind of properties, meaning they stick straight out or they come out in a very aggressive slope or angle. Always make sure that those get a lot of attention and support. Anything that sticks out or away from the character, such as her apron down at the bottom, definitely important to make sure that you adequately support that. And of course, when finished, always add your bracings to ensure strengthening of the supports that you've added. Supports sometimes are not good enough on their own, and I do remind myself of this a lot, especially when I'm using a lot of light supports that I make longer than they really should be. And I think supports actually do have a length kind of reach when it comes to size. I think that a certain size support, once it reaches a certain length, absolutely needs to be braced with another support near it or next to it in order for it to do its job. Otherwise, it will wiggle a little bit as the print goes up. And even if it's a gradual wiggle or wobble as the print goes up, you're going to have this misalignment sometimes on those supports. They may misalign entirely. They may not reconnect, which means you have a support failure or a partial support failure. And you could even have a print failure because of it. So it's definitely something to be aware of, is that there is a critical length when it comes to a support type, that lights have a certain critical length, mediums have a certain critical length, etc. And that really just depends on what you have as far as your light, medium, your diameter bar is going to make a big difference. The thicker the bar, the more stability it's going to have at longer distances. But the longer you make a bar that is, let's say, 1.22 diameter, 1.22 millimeters in diameter rather, that's a pretty skinny little rod that you're then going to try and make, 150 millimeters long. Okay, well, if you do the math, the tensile strength of that object, regardless, it's going to have some springiness to it. So what you're going to find there is that rod is going to jiggle at a certain height, and regardless of what you try or however nice your printer is or however many rails you have moving your elevator, you're still going to get a jiggle at a certain height with a particular type of length or with the material rather, and that's something to consider. So when you start creating the supports to get longer, the longer they get, always remember to consider the bracing options when you're putting 2 and 3 and 4 supports next to each other. And the way I cluster my supports, the bracing literally just creates a cage which kind of protects the print entirely. So anyway, we'll go ahead and do the export slice on this one, which I can't show you some of either because of the fact that some of it kind of reveals some of the bits that I can't show you on camera. So I'm going to edit some of that out as well. And we'll get on to the base. to speed up this process because we've already covered over so much of this type of work before that I don't think it's necessary to insult your intelligence and assume that you need help, supporting a base. Bases are pretty simple. The way I do it, you hollow out the bottom of it, you support the shell. It becomes a lot lighter, and your supporting methods don't need to be as aggressive as they would be for a giant heavy base of this size. So do keep that in mind. Hollowing is very, very, very important when it comes to big objects like this base and stuff like it. So do keep that in mind. If you want to hollow stuff, there's a good way to do it and there's a bad way to do it. We've covered it in a few videos, but I'll probably go over it again a few times because there are different ways to hollow things. There's the native lychee way. There's the way, using lychee and then re-exporting and exporting the model back in, or importing the model back in rather. And doing it that way, which is the way I prefer to do it because it preserves the holes as well as it can. And it actually does a pretty good job of it that way. And I've had some really good luck with that type of printing method. So that is usually what we do. Now you'll notice as we go through this process that most of the supports I'm going to do here are going to be mediums with a decent amount of lights that are going to go through the middle. We're going to do a double frame around the outside, and we're even going to make use of the mirroring function, seeing as this is a round base, and it does have symmetrical value on the left and right sides. So we're going to use the X mirroring for this, and we're going to use that to save some time as we move through the print. But again, like I said, I'm not really going to talk through this one as much. This is more just finishing this up for you guys and finishing the video series. But I hope this video series in general was a very cool one to watch, and we did go over different types of parts, the different types of parts for a particular for the humanoid character. This is a pretty big model kit in general. I believe she weighs up about, or measures up about 25 centimeters tall. So I think that's about almost 10 inches tall. So she's a very large figurine. So these are big pieces that we're talking about. I mean, 120 millimeter legs. The head is itself the size, about the size of a large miniature. The base is huge. So there's a lot of stuff to be printed out for these particular kits. And so I think if you're working with stuff like this, big stuff that some people do really want to get into, it's important to note that you have to hollow some of the big parts, otherwise you're going to have a harder time supporting them. And then when it comes to doing things like the bases or detail parts, you have to remember that sometimes the part needs to support itself. And then there are cases where you need to kind of help it out a little bit more, whereas, you have island issues where the islands are, going to be alone for a while before they join the main part of the print. And that's something to consider when you're creating the supporting structure that goes around those islands, because the weaker that supporting structure is around an islanded area, the harder time it's going to have to rejoin with the rest of the print and be successful and not pancake off. And so those are the reasons we get partial failures. And it's also some of the reasons that we see failures in general, because that can cause a major failure if it starts to fail a major part of the print. So yeah, all things to think about, consider, and focus on when you are doing your hand support work. And again, we've discussed this too. You can always use the auto support as a starting point. But the thing you'll notice is the way we do supporting here, like for example, the way I'm doing this circle around the base, there's a reason for this. And auto supporting doesn't seem to do this, and I'm not really sure why they don't train the auto supporting functions to do this. But what I'm creating is I'm creating a balanced ring. I'm creating a ring around the ring itself. I'm creating a ring of supports that are as close together as I want them to be without creating too many points to cause damage and just strain pulling the supports off. But I'm trying to create a circle. And the reason for that is because if you want a nice smooth circle, if you want a good circular base like this, you're going to have to create kind of like a circular shape of supports to give it that support it needs while it's printing. And I think it's important to note, if this was square, I'd be giving it like a square shaped frame. Obviously you're going to go around the outer edge. Now also what I'm going to do here is I've done multiple layers in that top framing area where it's a little bit thicker on top than it is on the bottom. And when I hollow this part, I did that intentionally to give me some extra room on top to add some extra anchored supports, some mediums and stuff up there where I can start adding in more layers of varying support to give it the extra strength it needs as it finishes off the top levels of this particular print. And again, this is pretty basic stuff. This is a bass. Basic bass. That's funny. Anyway, you get the idea, guys. We'll go ahead and run the export slice and let you enjoy some sweet, sweet tunes while we finish this one up. Thanks again so much for watching, y'all. We appreciate it. We should have some more videos coming in next week. More shorts, more fun stuff planned. Check us out on Instagram. Always, as always, check us out on our Etsy store. We have new products on our main website, printmymini.com. We love you guys. We appreciate all the fandom and all the people coming out, checking out the videos and everything else. So we appreciate it. And we'll see you all again soon.